The NDP environmentalist complex tried to spread a Covington Catholic-style hoax right here in Alberta about aggressive conservative boys being mean to gentle climate change-fighting peaceniks. But after 4 years of NDP environmentalist fake news, thankfully, no one was buying the narrative the peddlers were selling. You know, the kids are all right, at least here in Alberta. On Friday, climate marchers from Climate Justice Edmonton marched from Churchill Square all the way to the legislature. There were about 100 of them to protest the Trans Mountain Pipeline expansion and how we're all going to die in 11 1/3 years, or whatever the climate change Armageddon countdown clock has us at today. But these misled young people aren't the ones I'm talking about. It's the kids who greeted them once they got to the legislature, who are A-OK by me. A group of high school students was at the legislature getting their grad pictures done, like so many Edmonton area high school grads do. Even I did it. And when the climate marchers showed up, these kids, the graduates, started chanting in favor of pipelines. God bless them, just watch. Now, at some point, as a 17-year-old girl from Climate Justice was giving a speech, a group of high school graduating boys got behind her on the steps of the legislature and again started chanting for pipelines. One young man came up and stood beside the speaker, and it looks like he sort of reaches for her megaphone, but it's playful. What happened next, though, is insane and actually pretty predictable. Just watch.
Indigenous peoples continue fighting land.
Holy cow, that is some quick acting by the legislature sheriffs and Edmonton City police officers. They caught that young woman who tried to attack those boys in midair, it looks like, and to their credit, the boys didn't retaliate. They just dispersed and walked away. Now, one of the organizers of the event, Emma Jackson with Climate Justice Edmonton, actually tried to compare this to the Covington Catholic School fiasco because Jackson doesn't read past a headline or read past the first 8 hours of a news cycle, it would seem. Jackson would like us all to believe what happened on the steps in Edmonton was an example of toxic conservative young masculinity, as was the first narrative that emerged in the Covington Catholic High School scandal when young pro-life men from Covington Catholic High School seemed to be confrontational and aggressive with a benevolent Aboriginal protester at an American March for Life. But as longer versions of a video taken that day came out, it was pretty clear. The boys were not the aggressors at all, but rather the targets of the aggression. And for their fake news spreading, some of the boys involved are suing some very high-profile news agencies, hopefully into utter destitution. So, if Emma Jackson is comparing what happened in Edmonton to Covington, then yeah, I would probably agree this is fake news and her victims are not the victims, but rather the aggressors. And given that the attacker here was eventually released without charges, it's probably an example of female privilege in the justice system. But I digress. Also, predictably here, the NDP weighed in. Since they're now in opposition, they don't have to pretend to be pro-pipeline anymore. So they jumped on the side of the violent climate justice attacker. This person here is Janice Irwin. She's an NDP MLA in Edmonton who describes herself as a teacher and an advocate for LGBTQ issues. She really cares about the kids, you see, unless those kids are pro-pipeline boys, then screw them, I guess. Just look at this. Irwin tweeted to Emma Jackson, "Awful. So disrespectful. I'm sorry this happened. Any chance you know what school the kids are from? Irwin doesn't mean the school these ill-behaved green misfits are from. Oh no. She wants to know what school the pro-pipeline kids are from. Why would she want to know that? And can we just stop and take a minute to appreciate the fact that Janice Irwin is a teacher? And she's been one of the leaders in the fight to keep parents from finding out that their children are participating in after-school gay-straight alliance clubs. And yet, here she is on Twitter asking to reveal the school these pro-pipeline kids attend, meaning their identities will be pretty easy to find out after that. That's horrible. What on earth is Irwin trying to do here? Set a left-wing attack mob after these kids? These kids are mostly minors, 17 years old, and it's pretty clear the left-wing environmentalist side of this debate has absolutely no problem using violence against these kids, considering one of them attacked these boys in front of several police officers and legislature sheriffs. If I were these young men's parents, Janice Irwin would be hearing a heck of a lot from me. And she better hope to God that nothing happens to these kids, that Antifa doesn't come for them, now that she has used her large social media platform to reveal the school they go to. But Irwin isn't just going out of her way to dox these kids' identities. She's also a shameless hypocrite, as NDPers tend to be. Let's take a look at this tweet Irwin sent. Unbelievable. I'm mad and sad. Climate Justice Edmonton had clearance to be at the legislature, right? And as such, those grads shouldn't have been able to interfere. The MLA who wants to out these proud pro-pipeline kids takes the position that peaceful counter-protest shouldn't have been allowed because the climate marchers held a permit for a legislature event, which is a weird position for her to take because that's not how Irwin felt about the March for Life. Back in May, when this very same MLA was counter-protesting the fully permitted, largely religious event with the vulgar pro-Satan Antifa crowd who showed up, as evidenced in my footage from the march and interviews Irwin gave to the mainstream media on that day. And in stark contrast to Irwin now and to the totalitarian green wackadoodles who were at the legislature on Friday, the March for Life organizers called for tolerance and for respect for Irwin and Antifa's dissenting views. March for Lifers respected Irwin's right to free expression and her right to express it at the building that houses our democratic process. Irwin could learn something from them. One could surmise that Irwin thinks that it's a protected right to protest against Catholic grandmothers and children, but not delicate, irrational environmentalists prone to violent outbursts. Now, getting back to the attack on the pro-pipeline kids, the climate marchers now want the police and legislature sheriffs investigated for how heavy-handed they were to them. According to this Huffington Post article, Jackson says she will be filing a complaint, which is crazy because in my opinion, and probably yours, the legislature sheriffs dealt with the climate marcher incident a little too leniently, given that the maniacal attacker was released, like I said earlier, without charges. Do you think the boys would have been released without charges if they had charged at Jackson and had to be caught mid-attack by the police? This person attacked others for being openly pro-pipeline, and she did it in front of police with no fear at all. And because she faces now no consequences, she will probably attack again, and the leadership of her own movement will be happy for her willingness to do it. Emma Jackson is offended that the legislature sheriffs congratulated the young men on their response to being attacked. Good. They should be congratulated. Those young men did not meet Emma Jackson's group's political violence with even more violence. It was a very mature and restrained response from those young men, and for that, Emma Jackson and her cohort of poorly behaved, oversoyed radicals should be thanking their lucky stars. But let me also just say, I actually have a great deal of sympathy and empathy for the young woman who charged those pro-pipeline graduates on the legislature steps. She's just cannon fodder for people like Emma Jackson who will never, ever get their hands dirty or risk jail. That young woman's been whipped into a frenzy that she cannot control now. She's been taught that pipelines and oil and gas are an existential threat to human survival. She's totally brainwashed. And she could have gone to jail on Friday because she has successfully been fearmongered into violence. She's a victim here too, a disposable drone in the war on our free, prosperous society, used by people like Irwin and Jackson for their own ends. Thankfully, though, normal Albertans didn't fall for this attempt to vilify some kids for escaping the NDP indoctrination camps of public schooling. And Irwin's performance that day reminds us all why the NDP was not given a second chance to govern. For the Rebel.media, I'm Sheila Gunn Reid. Some of the best ways to help us out here at The Rebel don't actually cost you a dime. Just like and share our Rebel content and videos, and be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel.